And if we can just remind our body, I'm safe, I have everything I need. That's almost always true for people, unless you're in an active crisis situation. Anytime something is created just for us, we have more buy-in. And one of the ways that self-affirmations really help is that they...
Hello and welcome to our first episode of Bear Room Podcast. This podcast is built with the DŌBRA Venture Studio, so thank you for their help. And today, my first guest is an amazing Christina Spragg. Welcome to the first episode. Woo!
Yay! Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I know that you've been a big part of the Bear Room app. I'm the new product owner. And even though I heard a lot of good things about you, how you help the product, how you help the app, I may be not familiar with like your expertise and the thing that you are doing. And of course the listeners may be also not familiar. So let's start with a kind of generic question. Like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I am a clinical psychologist, which means I work in private practice doing therapy, but I also started a corporate wellness consulting firm many years ago. And so I partner with all sorts of industries, from wealth management to tech to app development to manufacturing in the US and in Europe, to illuminate some of the scientific research for psychology. So a lot of times people are wanting to coach their leaders, to help them develop more of an emotional intelligence, to help them with conflict management. Or sometimes I'm consulted for projects. If people are wanting to roll out a product that is for mental health purposes, they'll have me do the research and vet all of the exercises, or develop them in-house so that they're tailored to the specific product that the company is rolling out. So I get to do lots of things and contribute. It feels really fulfilling.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we kind of discussed off the recording is about affirmations. Affirmations is part of our app, and
Yes.
you help with the development of this function. And for person that I kind of a little ashamed to admit, even though I'm the product owner, but let's start with a simple question. What is an affirmation?
Most simply, an affirmation is a positive statement or phrase that is repeated consciously to challenge a negative or self-limiting thought, or to reinforce a desired belief or promote self-empowerment. So it's something that you say to yourself as often as you'd like to try to support a goal that you have, or to reduce some unpleasant kind of worry or negativity that you have.
And which are the scenarios in which I can use affirmation? I can give you just a quick example. I just had a difficult talk, like working talk, like a little stress, a
Mhm.
little confrontation. Is it something I can use, or it's completely different something?
Absolutely. Before any situation where you're wanting to have a bit more control over your behavior, where you're wanting to remember what your intention is, what the overarching goal is, where you're wanting to empower yourself, if you're moving into a conversation where you feel like there could be a potential for adversity, or conflict, you might want to come up with an affirmation. I stay open and curious in this conversation. My goal is to learn. I'm going to seek first to understand. So you might come up with something very specific. If there's a certain person in your life that you have to do business with regularly, and you have kind of a pattern of difficult interactions, you might just center yourself, ground yourself before the conversation. I'm safe. I have everything I need. My goal in the conversation is to understand. In that way, you're sort of being the strong, sturdy captain of your own ship. So no matter what happens in the interaction as it organically unfolds, you've decided how you're going to show up, the values you're going to bring, the goals that you're going to focus on, and you prime your mind to look for those opportunities. And what I mean when I say prime, I mean that you plant the seed, really close to the event. And so when you're in the event, which is the conversation in this example, you can remember very quickly because it's top of mind. It's not, you haven't forgotten how you want to show up in conversations. You just reminded yourself.
And you touched upon that when I asked you about affirmation, but how do affirmation like actually work? Is there a science behind it?
Yeah, oh my gosh, there's so much science. For over 15 years now, scientists have been studying the cognitive effects, the behavioral effects, and even the neurological aspects using functional magnetic resonance imaging. And they've used it in various populations, people who are about to undergo surgery, who are feeling anxious, nurses who are feeling burned out in the workplace, students who are really struggling with the lack of relationships during the pandemic when everyone was sheltering in place, people before they go do public speaking or give talks. And there's so much research that it helps to reduce anxiety, helps to improve self-esteem. It helps to kind of, do you want me to tell you kind of what happens in the brain? That's usually a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So essentially, our brains have parts of them that detect threat, and they have parts of them that can carry out pre-planned activities, and can focus and predict and things like that. And one of the ways that self-affirmations really help is that they quiet the mental chatter of the brain. They quiet the constant search for threat in the environment. What could go wrong? What is this person thinking about me? What if I never get a raise? What if everyone laughs at me? It really quiets that down, because what you're doing is you're kind of finding the remote control to the mind, and you're putting it on the channel you want to watch. You've already decided, I don't want to watch these other things, they're chaotic. I don't want to be thrown off my game when I'm trying to give a talk. I want to remember that I'm an expert. I know how to communicate complicated information in a simple way, and that's what I'm going to do, right? Which is my affirmation today, right? So you're deciding, yes, all of these things, these intrusive thoughts, these distractions can come online, but I'm going to turn the channel back to what I know is true, which is that I have something to offer, and I'm going to confidently deliver it.
You basically just described myself.
Good.
Like you just like all these thoughts and threats every time I have a conflict, and now and actually I'm gonna be like 100% honest with you. Like
Great.
the most popular practice in the bedroom app is actually affirmations.
Yeah.
They're kind of easy. It feels like it's easy. You kind
Yeah.
of can go through with like very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of my next question is, maybe I feel like I'm like shoot myself in the foot a little, but can someone create their own affirmations?
Yes, and in fact, I think that is the most helpful, because you're making it very specific and tailor-made. Anytime something is created just for us, we have more buy-in, right? We developed it. It comes from your own internal process. And actually, I'd like to walk you through a process so that you can create your own today. And
Let's do
perhaps
it. Yeah.
for listeners, I'd love it if you all could join us. So we're going to focus our attention in the present moment for just a moment. And so maybe that means closing your eyes or just tuning out any external stimulation right now. And take a few deep breaths just to ground yourself in this moment. And now I want you to imagine your attention is like a flashlight. So you can shine it on whatever you choose. And in this moment, you're going to shine your attention onto your body to notice any sensations, physical sensations. So things like warmth or ease or tension, excitement, curiosity. Okay? And when you have found a sensation or a feeling, go ahead and name that feeling that you're having just in this moment. Okay, and so let's say you're feeling excitement, okay? Whatever your example is, now I want you to imagine that the feeling is sort of like, if we're using a plant analogy, the feeling is like the shoot that comes up above the soil. It's the part that we can see. And what it is linked to down below the soil is the need, the seed. So every time we have a feeling, it comes from an underlying need. And if the feeling is pleasant, it's usually because the need was met. If the feeling is kind of unpleasant, it's usually because we have an unmet need. So whatever that feeling is that you just identified, maybe it's excitement, maybe it's fear, I want you to ask yourself kind of what is the need here that is causing this? So here are some examples of human needs. I have a need for belonging or autonomy, security, purpose. I need to contribute, right? So, for example, I'll just go with mine. My body's feeling excited. It's excited because I am contributing. I have a strong need to contribute. I'm doing that in this moment. So that need is really fulfilled. So you might often, when I'm working with clients in therapy or in the workplace, they might notice tension, fear, uncertainty. And I might ask them, okay, what is that underlying need? Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to excel in this project. We have a deadline coming up. I'm not sure. And so the need is certainty. I need to know how this is going to go. I need to be successful, right? And so if we can craft the affirmation that is very specific to that need, that is looking for support, it's going to be, tenfold valuable. So, for example, I need security. I need reassurance that my efforts are going to work out. So, an affirmation you could come up with is it's something that's true. You're not just making up something. It's something that's present focused, it's positive, something under your control. So, maybe it's each day I look for opportunities to have an impact. And so, what you might notice is if you repeat that to yourself before a meeting, before an evaluation, before a training session, each day I look for an opportunity to contribute. If you are contributing and you're reminding yourself that you're looking for an opportunity to proactively contribute, we might expect that after a week of looking for opportunities to contribute, you're probably moving in the direction of your goal. You are doing the kinds of behaviors that are going to lead to you being successful, which is the need that you have. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I didn't want to interrupt you because while you were talking, you have such a smooth, calming voice. I was thinking like I will clip that part and just play it for the clip for myself when I feel, because my feeling was security. And so I didn't want to interrupt you with my thoughts because maybe other people are also kind of listening. Uh, so my feeling was like security. So my affirmations would be something that would help me in like in that feeling, I guess,
Okay.
right?
Do you want me to help you craft one right now? So you need
Yeah. Let's do it.
maybe it's in a relationship or in a business dealing or in some certainty about your health or something. So you think of the specific area, and now I want you to think about an area involving security that you can actually have an impact in this situation. What is something you can do to bring more security into your life in this way? And so your affirmation will simply look like identifying it and then reminding yourself of that. So
That's
go
mhm.
ahead.
No. Continue, please.
So often, one of my favorite and most impactful affirmations that I've used throughout my life, and it's helped me navigate tons of uncertainty, right? Moving to a new country, applying for different jobs, making pitches, being audacious, doing all sorts of things, stepping outside of my comfort zone. I remind myself I'm safe and I have everything I need. Because we tend to, when the human brain is sort of scanning the environment, it's looking for threat. Often threat for a human is fear of rejection, being seen as incompetent, somehow being devalued socially. Our brains are so wired for social connection that we often do not advance, or we don't embrace courageous action because we're so afraid of the threat of social isolation or rejection or something. And if we can just remind our body, I'm safe, I have everything I need. That's almost always true for people, unless you're in an active crisis situation. Almost all of us are safe and we have everything we need. And when we can remind ourselves that, our brain takes a break from looking out for threat, And then you can focus and actually proceed with intentional behavior. And when the worry comes back, you just remind yourself, I'm safe and I have everything I need.
That's that's kind of remind me also when I'm using affirmations, it kind of helped me kind of a little step out of the situation that I'm in, because sometimes you get stuck in this stress loop and you just cannot escape it. And when you are doing this affirmation, it's like it's almost, it feels like, at least it's almost like somebody else is behind you in telling you like everything will be all right, you're in a safe place, because at the end of the day I have the roof under my head, I have food, like nothing basically can threat me.
Right.
And yeah, and that's I think, and that's the power of affirmation that I found for myself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. When we feel safe, our brain is able to unlock more creative, higher order thinking because it's not so preoccupied on establishing safety. So when I work with leaders in the workplace, often I'm helping them assuage some of their fears, kind of poke holes in them and not be so impressed by the fear, and instead embrace higher order thinking. Like, why not me? That's another affirmation I use all the time before I do something I've never done before. Why not me? People are doing it. I'm a person. I have access to the same resources and literature. I can figure it out. Why not me? Then you're like, well, yeah, that makes, why not me? Of course I can do
Exactly.
it. If anyone can do it, I
Exactly.
can. I get good at what I practice. That's another one. And that's just true. The more hours we put into something, we get good at it. If we're not good as we start, that should be no surprise, but we get good at what we practice. So if it's clunky and it feels awkward, fantastic. You're practicing it. You're on your way to getting good at something.
Exactly. And you just briefly mentioned it, like working with the leaders. How
Yes.
that work, is that different working with the leaders than working with I don't know, developers or maybe companies or
It's sometimes different. It's based on kind of what they're seeking out my help for. So sometimes they're trying to have more control over their own mind. They're trying to organize themselves more and unlock higher creativity, more productivity, less distractibility. Other times they're trying to figure out how to communicate that to a group and inspire them or drive productivity or shift a culture to something that is more free and collaborative and creative and less oppressive and rigid. And so those goals would have different affirmations, but the practice is really the same, whether you're doing a self-affirmation focused on a personal strength. So like if you're trying to build up confidence in relationships. So I'm worthy of love and respect, right? If you're someone who's been dating people who don't treat you very well, you might need to remember, I'm worthy of love and respect. I'm worthy of love and respect. So when I come across someone who doesn't treat me in that way, I remember this is not what I'm looking for. And I can say, no, thank you. If it's centered on achieving a specific objective, so I'm progressing towards financial independence, you might remind yourself that before you go on a shopping trip. Like, I am progressing towards financial independence. Okay. I'm going to see a lot of things that are exciting in the mall, but I'm actually looking towards financial independence and I'm progressing there. So I'm going to resist the impulse to buy these shiny things that are going to wear out because my bigger goal is financial independence.
I
And so,
forgot that one yesterday.
and that's a good point. We have to remind ourselves of these things, just like we have to keep flossing our teeth and getting our steps in and drinking our water. We have to keep up with the affirmations. We have to keep deepening the neural pathways in the brain with these intentional statements of they're wise, true, powerful statements, and we want to deepen our practice of those because, as you know, attention is fragmented. There are so many notifications, things just constantly competing for our attention. But the voice we hear the most is our own. And if we can learn to be allies with our own inner voice and to be our own biggest cheerleader, it is going to cut through so much of the insecurity or the doubt that can be kind of infused on us from external sources.
Exactly. And you again, you mentioned it, but one thing that I hear a lot, like we're doing user interview, talking with users, and they are telling like, I don't have time. I
Ah,
just don't have time,
mhm,
and it's difficult for me to find the time to kind of do this kind of thing. So
mhm,
what to answer to those people? Because
mhm.
it's clearly not that difficult. It's clearly not that long, but for
Right.
some reason cannot find time. So what's the problem you see with that?
That is the most common kind of hurdle to practicing mindfulness or implementing any new behaviors. We just think, I don't have time. But the truth is, we can set these visual reminders. So you can change your home screen to be a photo of an affirmation you've written so that you just see it multiple times a day. That doesn't take any extra time. You can put a post it note or a little, you can write something. This one says, you have to say yes sometimes too, right? For a person who struggles to allow themselves to enjoy things, right? You can tape it to your computer screen. You can put it on your bathroom mirror. Um, you can say it to yourself as you're walking down the hallway towards your one-on-one supervision session, right? It's a mental exercise, so it's not something that you have to carve out a lot of time for. You have thoughts all day long, and they're not always true. They're not always helpful. Worry, rumination, those things just kind of come in spontaneously. When you notice a spontaneous kind of worry, that triggers you to remember, you know what? Instead of, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to remind myself that every day I gain more competence. So it's almost like you're just speaking back to the negative thought. Every day I gain more competence.
And to kind of expand on that, it's kind of interesting to me that on one side you have just it's an I don't know, negative trend. It's a trend with the mental health that more and more people unfortunately are struggling with different sorts of problems, experiencing depression, anxiety, and just small micro stress, always in the stress situation. And
Yeah.
on the other side, so you have this big problem that people experience on day-to-day basis, and
Mhm.
on the other side you have this kind of, for some reason people are cannot find the time
Mm.
to to deal with that.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's maybe a broad question, but how do you see that situation? Is it something that we can remind people of so they can be more thoughtful about their mental health?
I think that roadblock, I don't have the time, is the perfect place to insert an affirmation. It's the perfect place to remember, I have as many hours in a day as any person's ever had. Part of my time is mine to keep. Like, I deserve to um, carve out space for clarity. Deserve to carve out space for clarity. Part of my time is mine to keep. Right? Yes, I have lots of obligations and things I've signed up for, but my mental health matters. I cannot excel in any area. I can't be of use to anyone. I can't be a good mother. I can't be a good partner. I can't be a good employee if I'm not well and creative and inspired. That is my responsibility. It is my responsibility to care for my mental health. No one can do it for me. No one is ever going to come relieve me of all of my burdens and say, okay, for a month, you go tend to your mental health. That's never going to happen.
Mm.
So
And
the difference is people decide, this is my job. It's not as complicated as I thought. It's one little step and it builds. And before you know it, your automatic thought, I don't know what I'm doing, is suddenly, why not me? Everything's figure outable.
exactly. And I also kind of, while you were describing like the affirmation and all the process, like how to do it, I also think affirmations, it's like microtherapy in a
That's right.
sense.
That's right. Yes.
And
Yes.
you can basically have your own kind of therapist.
Yes.
It's you basically,
That's
right? And you can go with that, and it doesn't take you a lot of time.
And it's free.
To
It's free.
it's free. It's free. Yeah,
Free.
exactly.
But you do have to have buy-in, right? Been reading magazines and seeing blogs, and we know we need to walk a bunch of steps and drink water and eat vegetables. Everybody knows these things. We don't struggle to do positive behaviors because we don't know them. We just haven't yet built them into our lives. We don't yet think we're the kind of person who does these things that might be woo-woo, right? So part of our conversation today, I'm hoping, is to let the listeners know this is very rooted in science. There's all sorts of brain studies and imaging, and you can see physical evidence of the impact of a brain that has been practicing affirmations versus a brain that is just, constantly task switching and believing the intrusive thoughts and just believing everything they think. It's different. A brain that has learned to come back to something that is planted there intentionally and to reinforce that over time, we literally develop these, they're almost like grooves in the brain, these neural pathways, and they become automatic thoughts. So over time, I'll see, my clients, people who previously had trouble standing up for themselves, now they're doing it all the time because they've internalized my voice matters. My voice
Exactly.
matters at this table. They're speaking up at work. And then once they speak up, people get to see how brilliant they are. It becomes reinforced. And now they are just a person who speaks up. That's become an internalized part of their identity. Now they're on to the next affirmation, right? We can all up level those.
And sometimes people are kind of it usually feels like the stress is more intense and people are less like if they are afraid to speak they feel like it's going to be the end of the day if they start talking, but then if they eventually start, like after affirmation, you actually can realize that you actually very like you have a skill. I'm talking from my own perspective because I was very afraid to talk, to present. And one day, my product owner, back in the days, he just told me, like, go to present to C-suite of of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized, like, I have a talent.
Mm-hmm.
I never ever experienced that, but
That's
that
right.
kind of thought from the other person, which can be affirmation as well, is extremely helpful for development of every person.
Yes.
Um, that would be a mistake not to ask you about, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong. I guess you have your own affirmations on the timer app
Ah, yes.
or
On the Insight Timer app,
inside. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have a few meditations there uploaded. And the affirmation one is so popular. People, years, every week I'm getting such kind messages from people. They come back to it, they listen to it, and it helps them start to internalize these beliefs. So it's so sweet to hear the stories of people coaching themselves. They're listening to my voice, but they're starting to internalize that and carry that with them. It feels wonderful, like having a positive ripple effect.
So for people that may not familiar, where they can find those meditations and affirmations.
So if you go to Insight, I think it's insighttimer.com. It's the app. The icon looks like a Tibetan singing bowl, and you can search for my name, Christina Spragg. You'll see. I think the most recent one is it's called Growth Mindset Meditation, I think, or Morning Growth Mindset, and it walks you through some of the kinds of affirmations that I've shared with the listeners today. And then also on Bear Room, I had an influence in designing some of the specific language of those affirmations as well.
That's brilliant. We will put link for people that would want to experience affirmation and meditation in the description.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, I have a special segment for you. It's
Ah,
called it's called Blitz Questions. Have nothing to do with affirmations,
okay.
but you need to answer quickly.
Got it.
Okay, let's start. Do you prefer summer or winter holidays?
Summer.
Do you rather have the ability to fly or invisibility?
Fly. Oh, the birds. Oh.
Would you rather be able to speak every language or play every musical instrument?
Oh, every musical instrument. That is the universal language, I think.
Yeah, like kind of waves and sounds. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
If you could only eat one type of cuisine for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. The Northern California girl in me would eat like a salmon salad with lots of vegetables and nuts and just fresh, crunchy, yeah, every day.
Okay. How do you relax after a long day of work?
I go on walks in the hills every day. I listen to podcasts or books. Nature, connecting with nature is really soothing to my body.
Do you prefer beach or mountains?
Both. I can't choose. I really can't choose.
Okay. And do you prefer coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. I do prefer coffee as well, but now I'm drinking tea.
Ah, yes, that's good for your afternoon rhythm.
I guess. Yeah. So, Christina, thank you very much for your time. Where can people find you?
Um, you can find me on the internet, Christina Spragg, Ph.D. You'll find my websites, my corporate websites, my therapy website. I provide therapy to people in California, and I provide consulting to companies all over the world. Yeah, so if anything resonates, I do speaking, workshops, developing
Mm-hmm.
things in house. I love to bring the psychological constructs into the workplace so people can learn how to use their brains more effectively and find more meaning in their lives. And it's an honor to do this work.
And how do people can contact you? Is it like LinkedIn or email or website?
I'm on LinkedIn. They can go to drspragg.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. Um, yeah, everything is Googleable. I feel like that's the easiest thing.
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
kind of an
Yeah,
unusual last name. There's not two of me,
yeah.
so they can find
Mhm.
me there.
Exactly. Christina, thank you very much for your time. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
And I
you.
think everybody will find like a lot of wisdom in what you said. And to everybody, bye bye.
Bye.